Who has a 100-word summary of all the trouble you guys got into last week?
Let me go back to the VOD and find the one from the previous session that we did this, because we did all that again.
I feel like you did some new stupid stuff.
Our lucky numbers today are 5 and 20.
We beat up Vladislav. That was fun.
That was fun.
It's gonna be interesting to see if he shows up this next loop.
And
we
Lucius...
discovered that it's likely that we're dimension swapping, or at least Vladislav thinks so. I don't know that I trust his judgment on things. He seems to have made bad choices in the past.
He's probably made good choices too. I mean, he's only human.
That was his first mistake. He should have rolled up a better race.
I was thinking that today. Like, I was thinking, like, I haven't seen like a human character, like player character in Flumph since the very first campaign we did. There hasn't been one.
Okay. I almost rolled up Gus as a human, but here's the thing: is like I really wanted dark vision.
Yeah, I'm happy with the fact that everyone in this party has dark vision. It makes it much simpler.
In my head, Keelian was a human.
Keelian was an Azamar.
No, yeah, he was.
Yeah, nobody.
But in my head, human.
I don't remember in that Planescape campaign. I know I limited you guys to the Planescape races, but humans on that list.
Yeah.
And then in the third campaign, I disallowed it as an option, so that was my fault.
We were just like, meh.
If you pick human in a Planescape game, you're a cop.
Yeah, you're kind of not. Yeah, might as well roll Clueless as well.
I've played humans in Planescape campaigns, but I've also played Rogue Modrons in Planescape campaigns.
I think for what it's worth, yes, if I was going to play a human, I would also play Clueless in a Planescape game.
None of you had the courage to play a Modron.
I almost got there.
Mm-hmm.
And no, Warforged are not Modrons. People, you could just play a Warforged. Nope, not the same thing. Not even close. Next topic.
So
are Warforged closer to Modrons, or are Kenku closer to Modrons?
Kenku are closer to Modrons than Warforged.
Yeah, that's my thinking.
So, at the end of the last session, at the end of the last loop, Lucius had his brain scrambled, and now he has no memory of what has transpired over the past few days? Question mark.
Your brain feels fine.
I also remember that Florian spent an entire loop pissing off torturing the little boy, so he could get murdered in his sleep because he wanted to see how that was.
That's why he's going to hell, for sure.
Torture is
exactly the right word. Is that what you're about to say? It was exactly the right word for what you were doing to that poor kid?
Antagonizing the little boy.
There you go.
Yeah,
I feel like that's fair.
Does Florian have a goatee?
Lucius
Not
does.
that Florian, but maybe the next one.
I feel like you're taking a long time to answer this question.
Depends on the time loop, I guess.
He's like, on a long enough timeline, all Florians will have a goatee.
Especially if they're locked in a closet.
But any given Florian does not necessarily have a goatee.
Schrodinger's goatee. The goatee is only there when you're not there to look at it.
That's not Schrodinger's cat.
No, it's not.
I mean, you guys know that I don't. I don't take like a hardcore stance on correct or incorrect ways to play any given alignment, usually. But I feel like Florian's stretching that neutral quite a bit, antagonizing that poor kid.
It was for a reason, though.
The ends justify the means seems pretty evil to me.
They were minor ends.
You're in a time loop.
Tomorrow it won't matter.
So
what
Florian's position is that I was just going to say that Florian's position is the morality cannot survive a time loop, which is probably correct. Like if any of us woke up in a time loop,
morality to Florian is subjective.
How many days? How many times in a row would you live the same day before you just started breaking everything?
7.
7?
Probably 2.
2.
I feel like it'd be a pretty high number for me, just because there's so many cool things I'd want to do first. Before I started stealing things, way lower.
I'll be honest, it might take, depending on when in the week it happens, it might take me 3 days just to notice it was happening.
Yeah, that's
I
actually why I
mean-
kind of want to. Is it would take at least 1 or 2 loops just to be sure of what was going on.
Like, I'd sit down at Photoshop and be like, oh, I've got to redo all this work. I must not have saved it.
And then, like the third day.
I feel bad making an evil character in KOTOR. I think it would take me a number of days.
I like how Nodal's the only one who said, like, anything close to no, breaking things is wrong, and I still wouldn't do it. The rest of us were like, as soon as I realized what was happening, I would set everything on fire.
I have not given an answer to that yet.
We
Well,
all
I-
know what you would say.
I mean, I think the first thing I would do would be do something small to see if that broke the time loop, and then I'd just work my way up. You don't want that to be the last loop.
That's true.
Yeah, speaking of being the last loop, in the last loop, we ended up killing poor Mrs. Bodkins.
No!
We ended up killing.
No.
No.
No. No. Objection.
Mrs. Bodkins. You know, I'm not even willing to blame the cat allergy on this one. She killed herself on that one. She made bad choices.
You're all like, oh, Florian was antagonizing the boy. Oh, Florian warned her, okay?
Yeah. No, I'm on your side on this one.
She
Florian.
shouldn't have come to work sick.
Yes. I'm willing to agree to that. That's exactly what the problem was.
Anything to get you out of having to take any part of, be complicit at all.
True neutral.
So, Lucius,
Yes.
as I described last week, you recall the previous night, a miserable journey through the woods, soaked in the rain, having an argument on the road about whether or not to come up to this house. When you finally got here, it was well past midnight. You met the off-putting butler. You were given a room that's not even technically inside the house, with this weird lanky guy with a big gaudy looking trunk, and you managed to fall asleep. The next morning, you're woken up when there's a light rapping on the door, and a woman who you do not know is Mrs. Bodkins pokes her head in and lets you all know that dinner is being served, or that breakfast is being served shortly.
And I will get dressed and head down, carrying just carrying my tobacco pouch and pipe with me as I go down there.
And as you reach the first floor, the butler that you met last night, whose name is Mordecai, gives you a disapproving look and tells you, "There is no smoking of pipes in Bicklebell House."
Do you mind if I take it outside after breakfast?
And if to answer your question, you hear the roaring thunderclap just outdoors. And a few moments later, Mrs. Bodkins wakes up the other two groups of you, the other two pairs of you.
Lucius looks very sad.
Seeker startles once again on seeing the dolls.
Already down at the dining table is the dwarven couple, Amner and Jimna.
Then I will be cordially engaging them in conversation.
They introduce themselves, and you start having small talk as the young girl servant Nellie comes around and starts serving up breakfast.
Okay, guys, should we go talk to Vladislav immediately this loop? Tell him what he told us to tell him last time and find out?
Yes.
Has anything for us? All right.
Let's eat breakfast first, though. We got till lunch.
Oh, yeah, we should probably just... I mean, we don't have to ride out to meet him, right? We just meet him a little bit outside the house before he gets here.
Actually might be a good thing. Like, can we just, like, ride away?
I've been thinking about using a loop to just get on Scrappy and see how far I can make it. I haven't decided if it's a good idea yet.
You guys having this conversation?
Seeker bangs on the door to your bedroom.
We're
Yeah,
having
it's open, Seeker.
Do you want to kill her again? Come on.
She died at lunch, didn't she?
No.
No, it was breakfast.
Oh,
She
yeah,
died
right.
Nope.
before
Nobody
breakfast.
went down for breakfast, so she came up to get you guys right around the time she would have passed out in the loop.
Right. Okay. I'm going to. I'm going to actually say something about the cat. See if we can't stop that from happening.
Who do you say it to, and what do you say?
I'm going to tell Mordecai's like I'm going to ask him if they have cats in the building because my cat allergies are acting up.
He assures you that no cats or other small animals are being kept in Bicklebell House.
Okay, if you say so. But I mean, like I spent all night sneezing.
He gives you his sincerest apologies for having to put you up in that dusty attic room.
Okay. Fair enough.
He doesn't know that you slept in Alex's room last night.
No. All right, let's go downstairs and let's grab some eats.
Okay. Is anything special happening over breakfast, or?
Yeah.
Lucius is going to politely introduce everybody to the dwarven people that they already know.
Okay.
Gus is like staring at Lucius like he's freaking crazy.
It doesn't take you guys very long to twig to the fact that Lucius does not seem to remember the previous loops.
Seeker's going to go look for what's the boy's name?
Biscuits.
Biscuits. Seeker's going to go look for Biscuits.
What was his actual name? Something the Great, right?
I will tell you, I wrote it down. Norbert the Nimble
Norbert the Nimble.
is how he refers to himself as somehow.
So during breakfast, Biscuits would be outside tending to his animals.
Alright, and I'm going to go up to Biscuits and I'm going to say, hey, my friend's sneezing because of a cat allergies. Do you know any cats in the house?
Is anybody going with Seeker, or is Seeker going out alone?
Oh, Florian has had enough of the boy.
Okay.
I think Seeker's
Florian is enjoying breakfast.
I'm worried about Lucius.
Okay. And Seeker ignores when Mordecai implores that he remain in the house, that it might be dangerous to go out in the storm, as is his wont.
Yeah, Seeker says, oh, I have to go check on something in the stables. My companion is stabling something there.
Okay. So how does breakfast proceed? Like, how do you guys...
Lucius is telling the dwarven couple about some of their investigations and how the case how we broke open a case in Dunfoss.
Amner finds this topic to be fascinating and loves the little details of it. Jimna seems to consistently be lost in thought, and it's hard to tell sometimes if she's paying attention to you.
I mean, it's fine. I'm not gonna press the issue. Like I'm not an asshole. Like, hey, pay attention to me. No, I'm not like that. I'm just if she has something to say, she'll say it.
And also at the table is Aylesbury, the man whose room you shared last night. Are you guys going to try to do something with Lucius at breakfast, or are you going to wait until later when you have him alone?
Gus is willing to wait till later. He's not going to raise that in front of everybody.
Okay.
No need to panic the peasantry yet.
And a few moments into breakfast service, as Nellie and Mrs. Bodkins is coming around, making sure that everybody's well fed. Mrs. Bodkins passes out. It's not feeling well.
Catches her.
This time she doesn't have any stairs to fall down. Mordecai and Nellie go through the motions of helping Lucius get her downstairs and putting her to bed. Seeker, meanwhile, goes out into the rain, out into the stables, where you're met at the door of the stables by the boy, Biscuits, who is trying to put all of his girth in the doorway. Like, he spreads out his arms on either side. Gives you some screed about how guests shouldn't be roaming the grounds. That the guests aren't allowed in the stables. for their own protection. He's obviously trying to keep you out so you don't discover his cats.
And Seeker says, I just came here because my friend's been sneezing because of cat allergies, and I wanted to ask you for 2 favors. 1, could you make sure the cats stay out of the main house? And 2, and then Seeker summons his familiar, which is a winged cat. And he says, would you mind taking care of my cat for the day?
He's about to protest as though, why would I have cats in the main house? That's ridiculous. But then you show him the winged cat, and the boy forgets everything else he knows in life and begins immediately fawning and doting on this magnificent creature, the likes of which he's never seen.
And I tell him, just make sure that Mordecai doesn't see her. I think Mordecai hates cats.
And he looks at you and he nods. I know he does.
And Seeker just kind of like puts his hands behind his back and says, no, I'm not saying you are hiding cats, but if you were, you might want to put them into a better hiding spot.
And he assures you in his stammering way that he's not. But then he, as soon as he tends to the Tressum in the stable, he does have some unconnected business he has to tend to immediately in the basement of the house.
Right, of course. Just make sure my Tressum stays with you, unless you're in the house, of course.
So he sets your familiar up, and I'm assuming you're ordering the familiar to
stay with him and watch him, yeah. I want my familiar to stay with him, but anytime he can't go with the boy because it'll get him spotted, I want my familiar to stay with the cats instead.
Okay, so at the moment, your familiar is going to be outside the basement door.
Yeah.
He's going to run in the house to retrieve the kittens. Meanwhile, upstairs, Lucius, the same, well, you would know it's the same thing, but you and Mordecai, basically what you did on the first day, happens all over again. Exactly the same way. Mm-hmm. She gets put to bed. There are parts of the basement level that Mordecai doesn't want you to see. Kind of ushers you up out of the servants' quarters. As you're leaving, the boy, Biscuits, almost bowls you over downstairs. He just barely manages to stammer out an "excuse me" as he's running down the stairs.
Be careful, young man. It's
And he doesn't even listen to what you're saying. He's already gone.
Come back upstairs.
Yeah, and I'll head in for breakfast.
Okay.
Taking time to dry myself off.
So Mordecai and Lucius.
Resting comfortably.
Mordecai and Lucius arrive back at the table. And Mordecai concurs. Lets you all know that the fainting spell was nothing serious, that she's resting comfortably. And then he excuses himself from the room.
Lucius?
Yeah?
Do you I think we should have a group meeting.
Okay.
Like, very important hush-hush investigator stuff.
Yeah, this rain's going to impact our plans. We might want to meet up.
Yeah.
All right.
And then I guess we lead him upstairs
Yeah.
to the not the creepy doll room.
So, which room?
Probably 20.
So up in the attic room? Okay.
Yeah. And we're just gonna run through the previous. What loop is this? 4 or 5?
All right, I died during loop 1.
Vladislav died during loop 2.
Yep. And Florian died during loop 3, so we're on loop 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who is Vladislav?
Remember the dude from the sewers that with the stupid hat and the stupid face?
Yeah, I hate him.
And the stupid actions, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's Vladislav. He shows up just after lunch, trying to get our help to kill Skada. And we.
All right, we're gonna give you the Cliff Notes version of this one.
Yeah.
So we're in a time loop. You apparently don't remember. That's new. And then Seeker just goes down through like this happens at this time, this happens at this time, using the normal first loops happenings.
Okay.
And Lucius will say that. I mean, if you say so.
So now our question is, what do we want to do? Do we want to ride out and meet Vladislav again and just?
I think we can just meet him. Like, we don't have to actually leave the grounds. I think we just meet him.
I am concerned that that Lucius does not remember previous loops.
Is it because he was trying to tell everybody that this was a time loop?
That
The time
makes
loop
sense.
Seemed
But
like it
we
ended...
just told him that it's a time loop, so we'll find out tomorrow, I suppose.
Suppose we will.
Or we won't.
Oh
we
no!
How funny would it be if just like for the next year, instead of playing D&D, I just replayed this VOD on Twitch
It worked. I mean,
for 50 weeks?
Second, I agree that we should just meet him outside.
Yeah.
Second point of order is that yesterday I was following the boy all night until suddenly the cats, the ones that he had to drown, he was over near those. Suddenly the cat bodies were all over the grounds. He was gone, and there was a time monster. So here's my working theory, hypothesis 1.
Mm-hmm.
When that kid gets freaked out, bad time stuff happens, especially late at night.
So what triggered the first time loop?
The cats were dead in the stables.
what killed them?
But did the monster kill the cats?
Yeah.
We thought the monster killed the cats. I also think Mordecai is a handyman with a knife,
Hmm.
and I don't trust him.
But in the second loop, the cats didn't die. Like I
Yes.
saw to that.
I don't have an easy answer for loop 2.
Something tried to come and get the cats in the second loop.
It was the monster, wasn't it?
I
Like, the
think
monster's
so.
the one, at least in the...
Did something happen to the boy in the second loop that we don't remember?
Not that I can think of.
Here's the complicating part of hypothesis 1, is the especially at night part. I do think it's triggered by the storm, so that if we upset this boy during the day, it's not going to work because the storm is not yet crazy enough. However, I don't know a way to fix this problem, because besides just keeping the boy happy and healthy,
Technically, as a resident of Dunfoss, who would be familiar with the powers of the High Priest of Osprim, you can think of a good way to solve this problem. Just
That's
none of you
true.
are clerics and none of you are high enough level.
That little thing.
So we're... I know briefly we thought maybe it was the knives, like there was one of the weapons were cursed.
yeah.
Did we... there still could be some artifact in the place, in the house, that is causing the issue, because the entire house is charged with magic.
It would
according to you
have to
guys.
be contained by lead, because I've been through almost this entire house, and I have yet to find it. If there is a cursed knife, and then I'll run through the elven knife that was missing upstairs, that's our best bet.
Yeah. What about... Did you guys cast Identify on the armor you found? I forget. I know you...
Was
It was
the
not
armor magic?
right?
It was not magic.
There was nothing
Yeah, then no,
magic in
I
it.
don't identify things that aren't magic because
What if we make it a point to burgle all the knives in the house,
yeah.
get them some significant distance away from the house, and then you locate object for a dagger?
For knives, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that might be a good plan. Unless, again, it's stored in some sort of lead-lined case, which would only make sense if it was some sort of devil artifact.
Right. Hmm. Can we...
Okay.
Okay, so you
God,
can
help
identify...
out of my armor.
Okay, I'll do that.
I'm gonna go invisible. I'm gonna get every knife I can find.
Okay?
I'm just gonna
Here's
carry-
mine, and I'm just
What?
going to hand them over.
Yeah, obviously, and I'm opening up the bag of holding. Everybody's daggers, get right now.
Really glad Red's not in this campaign.
Yeah.
We'd be here all day.
While you're doing that, Seeker, I have an idea that is dumb, but I don't know if it'll tell us anything.
Mhm.
So you have detected magic on the house, right?
Yes.
And the whole thing is glowing. Like
The whole thing
magic.
is glowing, especially the storm.
Can you identify the house?
It sounds... It's not a terrible idea.
And can you identify on the storm? I don't know how they identify
Yeah,
storms. I
I
don't know it.
Well, I have to be touching the object.
Okay, so,
So
you can't touch.
here's my thought, right? Is I'll do it while outside. I'll touch the house from the outside. That way, I'm touching both the storm and the house as much as possible. And if the spell doesn't work in that circumstance, it's never going to.
Right. I don't know.
No, I think that's a good idea.
Say it's worth the time.
So yeah, Rick, I'm gonna go ahead and cast invisibility on myself, and then I'm gonna go around the house and steal every knife and dagger I can find.
So
I got my lockpicks to work on the
What?
ones in the case.
what daggers and knives do you know about? What's your dagger inventory?
So obviously all the ones we're carrying. Were there daggers in that storeroom with the magical with the elven style equipment or not?
No. In fact, there were
sheaths with no daggers.
Yes, there were sheaths that looked like they could be sized for elven short swords or maybe large daggers, but they were empty.
So okay, so for our top floor, let's go ahead and just get all of our stuff in the bag of holding.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. I'm just putting all these in the bag of holding. For the third floor, for the second floor, I'm going to assume that the hunter and the dwarves have at least some number of daggers. So
The hunter has no dagger. I can inform you of that.
Oh, okay. Then I'm going to sort of assume the dwarves probably have some form of daggers, so I'm going to try and sneak in there invisible. See if I can't poke around a bit, see if I can find one like in their kit, in their travel kit or whatever.
So if you're going to do this, your options are either do it very quickly before they're done eating breakfast.
Yep, doing it right now.
Okay.
And I took off my armor, so no longer a penalty to stealth. And I cast invisibility.
So in the dwarves' chambers, you find basically the stuff that I outlined in the previous loop. She has her small little alchemy equipment that she has. He has a very nice crossbow. And yeah, going through their stuff, you do find a couple of, like one large dwarven-made dagger and a couple of smaller utility knives.
I'm also going to add a regent to her ambic to prevent it from exploding, to catalyze whatever reaction she's doing while I'm in there.
Are you looking to render it like inert?
Not inert, just so that it doesn't overheat. Something endothermic.
Make an Arcana check.
Sure. Can I do alchemy tools instead?
Yeah, either intelligence, Arcana, or alchemy tools, whichever you want.
For alchemy tools, doubled. That's a 22.
So in doing so, you kind of cover your tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, make a deception check. Intelligence
Sure.
Deception. Let's see if you actually do cover your tracks.
Deception. Okay.
Because you're working with your magic stuff.
Int. And I'm not trained in deception, so that's going to be a 24.
So two things that you've accomplished. The first is that it's going to be noticeable that something has changed.
Mm-hmm.
But she's going to be mystified as to what it is.
Okay.
You're relatively
Yeah,
sure
my intent was to coat the inside with like a powder or something. She might not be able to. Wouldn't be immediately obvious. All right. So then I'm going to while the clown guy is in there, I'm going to pick the lock on his trunk and pull out his daggers.
Well, the other thing you accomplished with her alembic is that she's not going to be able to throw acid balls at anybody this loop.
Oh, okay.
So Aylesbury, you know that he comes back to his room after breakfast as well.
Uh-huh.
So you're going to be cutting it real close because you guys ate a quick breakfast and went upstairs. So you can either chance going in there getting his trunk now and risk getting caught, or you can have one of your people run interference, or you can wait until lunchtime when you know he's going to be downstairs again.
I can wait for lunch.
Okay. There's also the knife case.
Yep. I'm not going to worry about that one right now. What I'm going to do is go downstairs while I'm invisible and search through as much stuff down here as I can.
Okay.
I can fill you in on that because I just searched that the other day. You might want to give it your own go around, but I can at least give you some pointers.
Well, remember there's a small kitchen and food prep area in 26. There are knives down here.
Yeah. But in terms of, I'm also going to check all the personal places, all the people's.
Okay. You know that all the servants are upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, in previous loops that Mordecai and Biscuits come down here to retrieve the cats. It looks like that's happened earlier this morning than usual, thanks to Seeker.
Okay.
So when you get down here, there's nobody down here except for Mrs. Bodkins in her room.
Okay. I'll start in Mrs. Bodkins' room.
Make a stealth check at advantage.
Sure.
We are under the assumption that just talking to Mordecai is.
That'd be a 21.
So you're not discovered. Yeah, you find, especially in 26, which is their like common and eating area, stuff left over from the servants' breakfast this morning that hasn't been cleaned away yet.
Okay.
And you find some large kitchen knives that would be very usable. Like, they're not daggers per se, but they're butcher knives. They could be used to murder somebody very easily. As far as weapons, though, you don't find anything of the sort downstairs.
Okay. Now, there's just the ones in the case and Aylesbury's. And as I'm invisible, I'm going to walk over to Seeker and just say, as soon as someone says their knives have been stolen, mention that ours have been stolen too.
And what was McDohl's question?
It was one for the group.
Okay. What we'd like to
We're
hear.
under the assumption that just talking to Mordecai is probably a fruitless effort, and may in fact
Seems that
probably be
way.
harmful, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What he's saying is the butler did it.
Are there
Yes.
people in the dining area right now?
After
After
breakfast is being cleaned up, yes, for a moment, because Nellie and Biscuits at this point coming back inside are clearing away the breakfast dishes.
Okay. Once they are done with that, I'll pick the lock on the cupboard and pull those knives out too.
Okay. Make an intelligence check.
Sure.
Actually, this would be a wisdom check. This has to do with your memory.
Wisdom, that's a 5.
A 5? Okay.
Yep.
Intelligence.
You've
though.
been through a couple of loops at this point. And even thinking back to the first loop, and you've already changed some stuff this morning. You're not going to be reasonably certain that you have the room to yourself without being proactive about it.
I mean,
Okay.
we can run
I'll-
interference for you.
Yeah, I'll go. I'll whisper to Seeker. Hey, I need some cover while I pick the closet, pick the weapon rack.
Okay. Seeker goes upstairs
Mm-hmm.
and passing by someone else, or passing by the others, he says, make sure that the kids aren't doing anything, the O'Nelly,
Mhm.
and then he keeps going upstairs. And then he's going to go over here and open up the cage of dolls.
Well, that's the 22.
$20. I'll make my way to 21, and then use what spells can I use to open up that thing of dolls? Oh, I'll just bring my familiar back and put him into that room and have him slash open the thing of dolls.
Okay. So, Alex, you're downstairs at the case, invisible. And you hear a noise that sounds like thousands and thousands of doll heads thumping against the ground.
Good thought, Seeker.
And after a few moments, Mordecai and Biscuits come upstairs into the room. Biscuits looks very, very nervous. And when he doesn't see you standing there. Never mind, you're invisible. You can tell that he's searching for something.
Yeah.
But he's also like trying to make it look like he's not. Like somebody asked him to watch something that vanished on him.
Uh-huh.
But Mordecai is dragging him around the house, and they go upstairs.
Is Nelly still in here, or is it just me?
No, Nellie had gone downstairs with them.
Let's go ahead and pick the lock.
Okay.
That's a. Might actually still make it. That's a 10?
A 10?
Yeah.
I'll let you decide. You can pick the lock if you decide to break it.
How about Flash of Insight 15?
15 will open the lock just fine.
Yep.
You get the lock open. It's stubborn, but it's not a masterwork or magical lock. Yeah, inside is the weapon rack, as you've seen it these past few days.
Grab all the knives, head into the kitchen, grab all the knives.
Okay. And all the knives go into the bag of holding.
And then I'm gonna go upstairs and make myself visible again out here in the rain, smoking.
Okay.
Like when no one sees me, I'll drop the invisibility.
Seeker, there's a confrontation as Mordecai comes upstairs to find out what the noise was.
Yeah. And Seeker is standing there looking freaked, staring at that door.
Biscuits kind of won't meet your gaze. Like he's very nervous and ashamed about something.
And I turn to Mordecai, and I say, I think this house is haunted. I don't know why you have a room full of dolls, but it was freaking me out, and I didn't say anything, but then I just go up here, and suddenly I hear a huge crash from behind a locked door.
Mordecai kind of bristles at the accusation and tells you, perhaps, if the comforts of Bicklebell House are not to Sir's liking, Sir may prefer a cot in the woods. And then he steps past you and fishes a key out of his giant key ring and starts unlocking the door to 22.
And I'll make sure that my familiar is dismissed.
Okay.
And he opens up the door.
And there's dolls all over the floor.
And Seeker points at them and says, "No, look!"
Mordecai turns back and says, Madame had a sizable collection, some of which is stored in this room. And he reaches down and picks up one of the dolls and begins to approach you.
Seeker flinches.
And he holds it out at arm's length. And he says, observe that it is but a child's toy, and that to be afraid of it is ridiculous. And there's a flash of thunder outside.
And Seeker squints at it and then says, "It doesn't seem to be magic. But to be fair, I have fought ghosts before. They're real."
And he carefully sets the doll back down on the pile. Tells you that once Nellie is done cleaning up the morning dishes from breakfast service, he'll have her come upstairs and reorganize the dolls so they don't burst out of their cupboard again and startle you. And perhaps I can have a word with the service staff and alert them to our gnomish friend's thin constitution, and hope that your stay be more to your liking.
Well, thank you. It's very kind of you.
He suggests perhaps you speak with one of your companions, either Lucius or Alex, about switching rooms.
I'll do that. Thank you.
And then he diapers your bottom and gives you a lollipop.
Great.
And Siggar on the way out looks towards the biscuits, and then says, "By the way, good job on the thing in the stables."
And he just kind of nods furiously for a second and then flees your presence as quickly as he possibly can and follows Mordecai back down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else happening before lunch service?
When Biscuits goes outside, I'm going to have my familiar drop down onto his shoulder as though he was just waiting for him outside.
And the boy dies of a heart attack. Good loot, guys.
Uh-huh.
Reset.
Like how many loops?
As soon as Ellsbury leaves the room, I'm gonna sneak in and grab his knives, and then I'll tell Seeker it's time to. I'm gonna get these out into the woods somewhere, and it's time to find the closest knife.
All right, sounds good to me.
Would they show up in the bag of holding?
Yeah, even if I'm not gonna worry about it. We haven't tested it. I'm just gonna get on Scrappy, take about quarter mile.
Okay.
If I know anything about spell work, they shouldn't show up in the bag of holding because it's in another dimension.
But you're doing this during lunch service, yes, Alex?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody not make an appearance for lunch service? As a
Alex,
reminder...
Alex will tell him to make an excuse for me.
Okay. Mrs. Bodkins, she's downstairs resting. Nellie is a bad cook, but everybody else is downstairs for lunch service, including Toriath and Aylesbury.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Aylesbury doesn't
Lucius...
seem to mind the food at all. Lucius does what?
Expresses regret that Alexander said he was going to go out and search for some reagents in the woods.
Jimna inquires as to what kind.
He said he could make me a soothing tea for my delicate constitution.
To which Mordecai sends Nellie into the other room to put a kettle on. Where are you casting Detect Object? Or Locate Object?
I'm going to do it to start up here in the attic.
And we're looking for a dagger or a knife?
Daggers, knives. If they're going to twig differently to the spell, I would do one of each.
Okay. Bear with me just 1 second.
Let's put up some nice mage armor on myself and my familiar as well, just because it's free.
I'm being very careful looking at my room descriptions here. So I've got to say,
yeah, I
very purposely planted a lot of knives in this house.
Yeah,
and Destil got all of them. Alex got all of them in the bag.
We've been hunting.
In fact, it's shortly after you go upstairs to cast the spell. During lunch service, they notice that the knives are missing from the kitchen. Shortly thereafter, Mordecai notices the knives are missing from the case. At which point, Aylesbury doesn't turn pale because he can't possibly be any greener than he is just normally. Stammers out an excuse and rushes upstairs. And when he returns a few moments later, he tells you that he's been burgled, that his case has been broken into and some knives are missing. And the conversation very quickly turns to, Alex seems to have left awful quickly just before everybody noticed the knives are gone.
Oh, come on. He wouldn't have done that and left us here. I've known Alex for almost a year.
I'm going to cast a message and warn Alex that he better come back with some herbs for my delicate constitution.
Message.
It's like the plane.
The same, yeah.
Are you talking about sending, Nodal?
Oh, sending, not message. Yeah,
Okay,
sorry,
yeah.
thank you. Sending.
Also remember, Lucius has a sending stone.
I know the spell.
Okay.
And I'll just
I'll respond. Sure. Also, did you remember to mention that our knives were stolen too?
Oh, did I get anything on the locate object, Brick?
Yeah, there are no daggers in the house, and then when you cast the spell a second time, you don't find any sharp knives either.
Okay, and yeah, I'll head downstairs, and I'll say, our knives are missing, and I just cast a spell, and they're nowhere within 1,000 feet.
Mordecai inquires as to the nature of magic you're using.
And I'll go into way too much detail on how locate object works.
He seems satisfied.
Do you have a suggestion on something Seeker should look for, Sir Mordecai?
He says at the moment, he is inclined to wait and see if your comrade Alexander returns to the premises. If he does not, he's inclined to name him the burglar.
Lucius, the sending stone, is going to go off and it's going to say, let them know, go ahead and say that I'm contacting you magically and that I don't have a knife in my pack for some odd reason, even though I always pack one, and I'm having a bit of a trouble cutting these herbs.
And Lucius will relay the message.
Mordecai's eyes narrow. And he seems very suspicious of the whole situation.
Alright, so let's ride about a mile out. Let's dump all the knives in the bag of holding out into a ditch. And then let's head back and grab some random leaves. Actually, can I make a nature check to see anything that would make a decent tea?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, hi. I'm drinking this.
It's a 21.
I mean, there's nothing exotic, but yeah, you find some leaves that can be ground up to make a decent tea.
Okay.
You avoid anything poisonous. By the time Alexander gets back, having ridden a mile out in the rain, and done this work and coming back and hunting for herbs and whatnot, Vladislav is going to have arrived. So the rest of you, if the plan is to go meet and talk to him in the yard, you're either going to have to confront him without Alexander present, or wait until he gets to the house to have all 5 of you there.
I don't think letting him get in the house is a good idea because he refuses to speak to us when he gets into the house. I think we should ask him to speak in the stable, where we can have some privacy.
I think that's a little absurd. I think we just talk to him in the yard.
He's not going to want to talk in the rain.
When he gets here, I can watch out from him from the balcony and send him a message to meet us in the stable because we'll help him with Thada. That was what it was. The message you wanted to tell us. Thought.
Yeah. Help with Skada.
Skada. We'll help him with
Thada
Skada.
is from the last campaign.
Very similar name.
I probably got both from FantasyNameGenerators.com.
They're good. It's a good place to generate your fantasy names.
Yeah, awesome.
Uh-huh.
So is that the plan? You're going to go out on the balcony when you see him come in through the gate. You're going to send him a message or a sending?
I'm going to send him a message. So 120 feet out.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And everybody else is going to be out in the stables?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Gus is not wearing his armor, but he is going to take his shield out there and kind of like prop it up to the side where he can grab it.
Okay. During the afternoon, Biscuits does not have time to go out to the stables because he has to be in the house picking up work that Mrs. Bodkins usually does while she's downstairs. And without Alexander out there building a cat refuge or whatever he was doing, there's no excuse for Biscuits to be out there anyway. So you guys have the stables pretty much to yourself. You do see where he's got the kittens set up in one corner of the first... I'm sorry, you said stables, not kennels.
Yep.
Oh, I think actually I'd rather meet in the place with the kittens. So do you guys mind switching to the kennels?
I thought they were the same thing.
The kennels is a smaller structure where dogs are usually kept. It's just they don't have any dogs at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. So the kennel has 3 little compartments. The first is where he's got these kittens staying. The second he has Seekers Tressum, and the third is where Scrappy is right now. No, I'm sorry. Alex has Scrappy out in the great stormy yonder.
Yep.
Seeker, what is the message you send to Vladislav when you see him come through the gate?
I tell him, meet us in the kennels. We'll help you with Skada.
To which he immediately looks up at the balcony and sees you standing up there.
I'll wave.
You see him stop for a moment. His hand goes to his chin as though he's lost in thought. And he's allowed to respond to a message, correct?
Yeah.
25 words or less.
Nope, there's no timing, actually. He just can respond.
Alright, message not sending.
Does he have a time limit on how long he has to respond?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I'd assume it'd have to be within the round, but I'll send him another message if he doesn't respond saying, you can respond, you know.
It is a cantrip. Yeah, so.
His response is that he's, at this point, disinclined to approach the house until he solves the riddle of how you knew he was coming.
And I'll point to him again and I'll say, you told us. We'll talk about it more in the kennels.
Do you stay on the balcony? Do you leave first?
No, I'm going to go meet him in the kennels if it looks like he's heading that direction.
Well, right now it just looks like he's standing there in the rain, staring up at the balcony, studying you.
Yeah, once he stops replying, I'll start heading downstairs.
Oh, he'll reply for as long as you want to have a conversation with him. But the conversation's going to be all about him trying to figure out how you figured out he was coming.
Yeah, I think after about 12 seconds of that, I'm going to point him back and say, listen, this is getting a little tiresome. I'm going to head out to the kennels.
Yeah, you have to remember,
You can meet me on the way.
this guy has been successfully shadowing you on the road for weeks, and you never knew he was behind you.
Yeah.
Until just now, in the rain at your destination. So from his perspective, you're probably just messing with him.
Yeah, and I'll head downstairs. I'll say, by the way, you need to give better advice in the future.
Seeker comes back into the kennels. And a few moments later, you see Vladislav appear in the door.
Say, I'll be damned. You guys were right.
He peers his head in, and he takes off his floppy green hat. And he has his wine-stained face, and he's soaked and muddy from the road. He looks around. This is a genuine surprise.
Yes, me too. I was kind of expecting you not to show up this time.
No much less for me, though.
I have to admit, I'm impressed at both your capacity for finding out I was following you and your capacity for leading me along. You have me at a disadvantage. I had expected to have the drop on you.
All right, so listen, I already gave this speech once today, so I'm going to run through it a little fast. Stop me if you need me to. And then I'm going to start giving him the speech that I gave Lucius about the time loop.
Okay. Alex.
Yeah.
You arrive back at the grounds on Scrappy with your reagents in hand about the time that Seeker is reaching the end of this speech. So when you approach the kennel from behind and come around, you see Vladislav is standing just in the doorway, just far enough in that he's not getting rained on anymore.
Yeah. I'll just kind of just come up right behind him on top of on Scrappy's back. Like, are you going to not say anything, but is he going to let me through, or?
Are we filling him in on the details about why he's running as well? That we also know that.
Oh, yeah, I'm giving him, like, everything that he gave us, because just telling him what he said, and I'll make a snarky remark about this, just telling him what he said we should tell him wasn't very convincing, so he doesn't know himself very well.
I mean,
he seems surprised, not unconvinced. And he doesn't deny anything you tell him, providing you just repeat what he told you on the previous loop.
Yep, and I'm just repeating what he told us.
Okay. He does step aside to let Alex and Scrappy enter, but very tellingly, he steps outside the door and not inside the kennel.
Gus is going to be like, come on. Gus is going to like reach over behind him and pull the door closed.
The kennel doesn't have like an actual door. It has like these two kind of wooden slats like you'd see on like the front of a tavern or something. It doesn't have a door that actually closes and locks. Each of the three compartments inside does, though.
When Alex gets off, Scrappy will just kind of bring his clothes out a little bit. Wait, does he have any knives on him? I forget.
Oh, that's true. Do you have any bladed weapons on you? I'm not asking for your spell focus.
And he reaches under his cloak into a sheath in his breeches, and he shows you just a standard like utility knife. It's not a dagger like you'd use in combat. It's just
we're gonna need that one too.
And Seeker nods and says, "Can we hide it? People keep dying from daggers and such, and we're trying to find out this time if we can stop that from happening. Again, we're not trying to disarm you. You can keep your spell focus."
He looks very amused as you explain this. He has a little flourish in his hand where he throws throws that knife, catches the blade, and holds it towards you, handle first. Says, "Be my guests."
Alex will take it and get back on Scrappy. All right, I guess I'll be back in about an hour. Here's your tea.
Thank him. I'll take it.
And yeah, I'm gonna go out to the same place I dropped all the other knives, ride another mile out and back.
Vladislav levels with you. He says he doesn't. He says this time loop story is amusing. And
Barmy, some might say.
He wonders if you can show him any tangible proof that the time loop is happening and that you didn't use some kind of strange magical means to suss out the things that you know about him.
You're asking us to prove a negative.
Well,
Hey,
no,
wait,
because
I've got this.
I've got events. Yeah, go ahead, Lucius.
I've got this. Lucius points to the center of his chest and says, from what Seeker has told me, you have a magical device right there that's keeping us from entering your mind."
And he reaches up and touches the spot on his chest that you've indicated. And he says, all the more reason that I'd like an explanation.
How would we have gotten this information if we hadn't?
He says, how indeed?
Like,
And-
you're
Seeker will kind of wave his hand and say, "Okay, guys, we can do this." Oh, the only question is, does anyone remember anything earlier? Because tonight, what's his name? The guy upstairs with you, Lucius?
Oh, Aylesbury?
Aylesbury. Tonight, Aylesbury is going to get very sick, go out onto the yard, go to the bathroom, and then die horribly or have some nightmare happen to him. So I'm trying to think of anything that can prove that we're talking about is true before that. Do you guys remember any events that'll happen sooner?
Lucius shrugs.
Yeah, not you, Lucius. You get a pass on this one.
I mean, huh? Like I'm gonna look at Vladislav in square in the eye and say, and I'm gonna point at my face. He goes, "Do I look like I am a good liar?"
He says, I know that Flumph Inc. are detectives. I know that one of the hallmarks of a good detective is that they are a good actor. And I've also learned today, more than most days, through our interactions, that underestimating you lot is a severe mistake.
Okay. Last time we made a compromise that you would pretend like we were doing this right. Oh, and you also made some insinuation that this is all happening in different dimensions. Does that convince you? If not, that you could just pretend like we were not bullshitting you, and just act accordingly. Does that sound
Seeker, make
doable?
a wisdom check.
Make a wisdom check? Okay.
Yeah.
Did it ever occur to you that maybe this
Hold
is
that
a
thought.
trap?
Wah.
Okay.
Nothing.
What was Gus saying?
I was going to say, Vladislav, did it ever occur to you that this was a trap set by Skada to trap you out here?
He says that he admits the thought had occurred to him when he was standing out in the rain and Seeker called down to him from the balcony.
To trap us out here as well? You said that she was getting ready to throw a reunion party when we got back to the city.
He says to the best of his knowledge, that was her plan, but perhaps she got wind of the lot of you sussing out my actions, knew our destination, that we'd all be in the same place, far from town, and arranged something more sinister for all six of us, to be rid of all of one's enemies at once.
All right, how about this?
Did you hurry to get here? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Destil.
When you go inside, you're going to immediately get everyone in the house on your side. You're going to smoke a pipe, despite that being against the rules. You are going to pick a lock on a cabinet and take a look at some very excellent elvish daggers that you're not supposed to have access to. You're going to play a game of pool, I believe, against... Was it Lucius?
Gus and Lucius.
Gus and Lucius, and did he win?
No.
Do those all sound like things that you would do?
Elvish daggers.
He tells you that his plan was to, when arriving at the house, seeing that was your destination, to endear himself to the serving staff. He figured this was the best way to keep you all from, well, ambushing me in a kennel. And he laughs nervously.
He goes, I'm not wearing my armor. If I was going to kill you, you'd be dead.
Alright. So, did you rush to get here? Because now I'm thinking that the most reasonable events that happen are when Mrs. Bobkins gets sick, and that happens earlier. So if tomorrow I sent you a message to get here as fast as possible, do you think that you could get here before that so that we could convince you?
He tells you in truth that if he received such a sending first thing in the morning, and he knew at that time that you knew he was coming, he would be disinclined to show up at all.
Oh God, is there anything that can convince you?
he wants to know why you're telling him anything at all.
Because you're a spellcaster and we need another brain on this.
You introduced an interesting theory last time that this was because we were entering into a series of different dimensions, essentially. And it seemed like you might have some experience with that, and I would like to know what that was.
All right. Perhaps I'm not as great a disadvantage as I surmised. Here's my offer.
Uh-huh.
Allow me to go into the house, dry my rain-slick clothes, have a hot meal, perhaps a cup of coffee or something stronger, and a good smoke. And when I'm relaxed, and I have befriended the other guests and the serving staff, and I assure you I won't be picking any locks, he says to Alex.
We've already done that anyway.
He says, I have some ideas about how to help you research this problem.
That sounds good. Can you mention that your knife is missing as well? Because we really don't want to blow our cover on that one. It would be a waste of a day.
We made a
This
mess.
sounds like it would be a terrific way to turn the other guests and serving staff against you, if I were so inclined.
Oh, it would be fantastic. So if you
Yeah.
need to have some hold over us in order to talk, you got it.
And I heard correctly, he's talking to Alex now. You're about to leave and go hide my knife with the rest of... Am I also to understand that you too have the ability to use sending stones?
Mine's
Already
tapped.
used for the day.
I can cast the sending spell.
He says what he wants you to do, as a show of good faith, that you're not going to murder him in a kennel.
Sure.
And I want to remind everybody that this is not an unreasonable assumption, considering yesterday you ambushed him on the road.
Yeah,
He doesn't
fair.
remember that.
No, but it is not out of character for this group.
No, we might kill him in a kettle.
We've also already gotten him killed
Okay.
once.
If we weren't already convinced that it would get undone tomorrow, we would have murdered him in a kennel.
Right.
We've
Don't tell him
already-
that, though.
So,
Yeah, don't say
Already
that.
killed him once.
so he
That-
instructs
No, never
Seeker to go with Alex to hide the knife. So Seeker knows where the knives are hidden.
Yeah.
And when he receives a sending with a very detailed instruction on how to reach that location, he will be inclined to assist you to the best of his ability.
All right. Sounds good.
This way, if anybody betrays him during the day, he can tell the butler, I know where all the knives are and who took them and where they are now.
Here's Lucius. Here's
Yes.
the leaves that he was going to make into the tea. Tell her that these leaves, from what Seeker told you, are useless for making him feel better. They're just good herbs for tea, and he was going to go out with Alex this time and show him where to find the good ones. Tell him that Seeker seemed very confident, and yet you don't think he knows what he's talking about. A little detail like that always helps with a lie.
I feel like you could just always say that about Seeker and be...
Yeah, no, I think I can make that convincing, yes.
Okay. So we're agreeing to his terms, in other words.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay.
Dude, like, what is our stance on telling him that he was murdered once?
Oh, I assume Seeker mentioned that because...
Yeah,
he said
I mentioned that detail. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to convince him. So I'm
'Cause
telling him everything, basically.
That was the
Not
detail
by-
that convinced you that Vladislav wasn't behind it, is my understanding.
Yeah.
Right.
Murder not by our hands, but by whatever force keeps setting time back.
All I'm going to tell you is that kind of helped me get the whole murder of Vladislav thing out of my system. We'll see for now.
So Vladislav gets into the house a little bit later today than he did on previous loops. So by the time you guys get in, Mrs. Bodkins is already back upstairs. But from there, the afternoon more or less goes as intended. Mrs. Bodkins
give
insists
Nelly-
on serving him a meal. You give Nelly what? The D?
I give Nelly and Mrs. Bodkins the details about the leaves and what Seeker told me. So.
But you don't give Nelly the D.
No, absolutely not.
We're
Did,
not
did everybody tell Lucius that Nelly wants the D?
I mean, I would have
Or-
brought up.
Lucius doesn't know that she wants the D.
Well, that's what I'm asking, because everybody else knows that she wants the D.
I would have told Lucius that to watch out for Nelly. She wants in your pants.
Lucius is like, what's in my pants that any woman could want?
I mean, listen, Lucius got a 20 charisma. He knows, but he's not going to act on it.
Find out what that's worth. On the
Unfortunately, tieflings have. Never mind.
When we get to the place where I buried all the knives, this time, once I threw Vladislav's knife in there, I'm not taking any chances. I'm pulling out 3 vials of acid and I'm dumping them on top of that pile of knives.
And
No more knives.
does severe damage as they start to melt into a lump. The elvish ones, the blades that are made out of silver, do seem resistant to the damage, but it's very clear that they were damaged.
Do I have anything? Can I make like an alchemist check kit to see if I can whip anything up that I think would do enough damage to make them unusable?
Unusable as knives, probably not, because
Okay. Well
Dude,
then,
how much-
smithing tools, hammer.
How much acid do you have? Just keep pouring it. You've got like 5,000 vials of acid. Just keep pouring acid on them.
Hey, Alex.
Yeah.
Stupid question.
Yeah.
Do those elven knives look like the sort of elven knives that would be kept in elven sheaths that we would be looking for an entire day, even though we knew elven knives were in the house?
Maybe. Hold these tongs. Yeah, smith's tools. I'm gonna do what I can to destroy them then.
Oh.
Dustin's just have to destroy things this campaign.
the rest of the afternoon, you guys play some pool. And very notably, he does not try to pick the weapons case at any point. In fact, by the time you guys have gotten back into the house, the weapons case is empty. Mordecai has determined they've already been burgled, so they've moved those items and some of the more expensive bottles of liquor from the liquor cabinet. He explains they moved them downstairs until they can determine who is the thief.
Reasonable precaution.
I'll
Vladislav eats his meal, and then
send
after about...
Vladislav the message as requested.
So, are you sending him a truthful message? Like,
Yes.
anybody could follow these instructions and get out here and find the knives.
Yep.
Okay. So after about an hour or so, Seeker and Alexander return.
Yep. And I'm carrying some poisonous leaves.
And Vladislav, everybody in the house just loves Vladislav. He's just everybody's good friend.
Yep.
Something we are not considering. Who is going to get murdered?
I have expected everybody to yell out, "Not it."
I actually was thinking about volunteering to sleep in the room, just at the ready, just so we couldn't get like a better look at the thing.
Yeah, why don't you not go to sleep?
Right. No, I mean,
Yes.
not going to sleep, but like sit in the room at the ready.
Yeah.
And then just kind of, you know.
Hey, Brick, I have a question.
Sure.
We've had a couple days where people have stayed awake.
Mhm.
Have they felt sleepy in the morning?
No, every time you wake up at the beginning of the loop, it's as though you've woken up from a long rest.
Yeah, so I don't see any reason any of us should sleep.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell.
I thought we could even put an alarm outside our window, and I could just sit there with my gun.
I
It's
do
just
have
time to
magic
go to
now.
sleep.
So here's actually my thinking on the thing is that I will go on to, because I want to hear what Lucius has to say real quick.
I'm going to tell Mummer guy. His name just completely vanished from my brain.
Aylesbury.
Aylesbury, yes. I'm gonna tell my roommate that he needn't concern himself with disturbing me. I do notice that you do look a little pale, but I sleep fairly heavily, so you needn't worry about disturbing me.
Hey, actually, hey Aylesbury, you look a little under the weather. Would you like me to maybe mix you up something to help you with that?
Don't give him the poison sumac tea. Don't give him the poison sumac tea.
Yeah, I'm gonna run the poison sumac tea by the ranger and by Mrs. Bobkins, and I'm gonna do it in a tone of, "See, I found the right leaves."
And of course, Toriath admonishes you and makes sure everybody understands not to drink your terrible poison tea. Aylesbury insists that he's feeling okay. He had a good lunch. And doesn't go into more than that. You have to remember, he's recently been burgled as well, so he's very highly suspicious of basically everybody at this point.
Okay.
When do we follow up with Vladislav next?
The next time he'll let us get him to talk to.
Well, when do you initiate this? 'Cause, I mean, you've got about 2 or 3 hours. I know you've got 2 hours before supper service, and then from there it's about 3 hours until everybody retires to bed.
Maybe like an hour before supper.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Does that sound good to everyone?
Yeah.
But what I was one quick thing, like I was thinking that this creature, right? We might, because he keeps like erasing our
attempts to strike.
Yeah, our attempts to strike at it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's a way, like if that's a thing it can only do so many times in a day. And I'm wondering if there's a way we could stagger ourselves to kind of like, like making a
exhaust the creature?
like to exhaust, like say a dragon with its legendary resistance. Yeah.
I had a similar thought, which it seemed like the area that it reversed when it was doing it to prevent an attack only happened in a very localized area. I was wondering who amongst us can shoot the furthest.
Probably me, maybe Lucius.
So is this a conversation you're having along with Vladislav, and if so, where?
I don't have
We
any
can
problem bringing that up with Vladislav.
Yeah, we can have up here or in the creepy doll room.
I mean, he's probably not going to go into a private room with any of us, so I would imagine that you'd probably have to have the conversation, say, either in the hallway between the dwarves' room and the balcony on number 9.
Okay. Yeah, this is a hallway area, but anybody could walk through at any time.
Is he willing to get into a room with us?
Oh, yeah, at this point, because you've given him
Okay,
his
then, never mind.
blackmail that he needed.
Then yeah, let's
just
just meet
20.
up in the standard room.
Yeah, 20 and 21.
He follows you upstairs. He does stand closest to the door. And he listens to you guys.
I can get a bead on something about 120 feet with the musket. Anything beyond that is not very reliable.
Same with my magic, and he gives a meaningful look at Vladislav.
And I'm to understand that Lucius has lived through this loop, but has no recollection of having done so.
Yeah.
It's more's the pity, because perhaps Mephistopheles would have some wisdom on the situation. As it happens, my patron and the source of my magic is also well versed in many kinds of bizarre magics, some of them temporal in nature. If you would permit me a few uninterrupted hours to commune with him, I can return to you this evening with answers.
Sure, don't tell him it's to help us though. I don't think we're on his.
And he smiles and he says, "And why not?"
I don't think he's too happy with us.
Oh, none too happy at all. And he looks at Alexander and says, "You least of all." But if you are indeed living in a time loop, it doesn't matter, because you'll go to sleep tonight, wake up tomorrow morning, it'll be today again, and I will have never done this thing.
That's true. I also have a physics question to ask you. As a dimensional knower, do the gods stick in this dimension, or is Mephistopheles following us from loop to loop?
He tells you that it's curious to hear you refer to Mephistopheles as a god, and he wants Lucius's opinion on the subject.
Certainly not. An entity of great power. Immense, unimaginable power.
Lucius, it can't possibly be that I know more about Mephistopheles than your bosom companions, could it?
Never seen it safe to tell them about about all of the tricks of the trade.
This is very well. I respect your decision.
For their own safety, if for nothing else.
I'm gonna point at my face and goes, "Does this look like the face of a man who can keep a secret?"
You bring up an interesting quandary, Vladislav. For we are stuck here in our own little time loop. But there are other people experiencing their own truths. And it makes me wonder, what is going on with them? Surely they're not all repeating. They're not all stuck in this time loop.
By them,
Yet
you mean
somehow
the
we
other
are.
guests in the house?
Not just the other
Unless
guests in the
they've been
house, but
exposed to this.
say all the people in Dunfoss.
And you can
if
say
this
with a
is the
certainty that they're not?
If this
We
is
haven't
the
checked.
case,
Hey, do you have another sending?
No, but here's my thought before we start blowing sendings, and I do have another sending, but before we start blowing them. But assuming that the entire world is shifting, it wouldn't actually matter if they were stuck in the magic or not, because assuming that no new instance pops up, they're just gonna make the same choices with the same information that they made before.
yeah.
I'm just my biggest fear is that we have been in this time loop for an untold number of times, and time has continued to march on without us. What if we get back to Dunfoss and it's been 1,000 years?
Oh my.
1,000 seems like a bit much, but I wouldn't mind asking Linda what date she thinks it is.
Barring magical trickery, free will is a ruse.
So Vladislav says he's going to need a few uninterrupted hours in order to perform a ritual to commune with his patron. He asks if he can use this room that you're standing in now.
How much time do we have until the murder is fated to go down?
You've got 2 hours until supper, and the murder is 5 hours from there.
Okay, then
Sounds good to us.
that's
No,
the
it's
time
actually
you have.
longer than that. I mean, there are no clocks in the house, but right now it's about 3 p.m. The murder happens at 2 in the morning. More.
Actually, correct. There is an immaculately built water clock set up in our room.
Jesus Christ.
I forgot he did that.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
he did do that.
I actually I'm a little concerned because I got the impression that Vladislav was kind of patronless at the moment. Like he wasn't beholden to anybody.
Do you ask him to press him on that information?
Like, I'm not going to bring it up
Okay.
I will.
to him directly. I'm going to ask Lucius what he wants to do about it because I remember that he made it sound like to me, but I'm not a warlock, so I don't know.
What does
The
Lucius
gift
bring
is
up?
one way. The gift is one way. Oh, it's hard to call it a gift. Gift is not the correct word.
Are you saying this in Vladislav's
Exchange.
presence? It's here during this conversation with everybody?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. The gift is not. The gift is. Again, I keep using that word.
There's no takebacks?
Exchange, I would suggest.
Vladislav
There's
interjects.
no.
If I may offer a correction, Lucius
Certainly.
believes it's one way, because so far he has done nothing to displease Mephistopheles that he knows of. Sleep well, my friend. And he holds his arm out to usher you all out of the room so we can get to work.
So, Lucius, how exactly does this sort of hierarchy work? And just how mad would the forces of the underworld be at me for murdering one of their higher-ups?
It was my understanding that we hadn't murdered one of their higher-ups. We had banished one of their higher-ups.
I thought that was the one thing that could slay it.
Seeker just throws his arms up in a shrug. Then I don't know who the heck he's talking to.
Then he's clearly not talking to whoever granted him his power in the first place.
Or it was
Like-
banishment.
Like, should I go back and, start going back to services on Sundays and talk to Glittergold a little bit closer just to make sure that nothing bad happens when I die? Or what are we talking about here, Lucius?
Whatever weight is on me alone.
No, I'm not. That's not what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about retribution.
Listen, as an avatar of Garl Glittergold, I will tell you that when you die, the god will steal your soul away from anyone who wants to take it.
Okay. What about before when I die?
That you're on your own.
Okay. Makes sense.
My recommendation is, if you think something might be about to eat your soul, kill yourself.
Is anybody doing anything important before supper is served, before dinner service?
No, not yet.
The kittens are currently in a pen in the not in a pen, in a just out in the stable by themselves.
They're out in the kennel, yes.
I'm gonna go move the kittens into Scrappy's chamber and build a much more makeshift pen than I did the first time.
And this is where you find Biscuits is already out there.
Uh-huh.
And after the same kind of awkwardness you had on the first day, but once he realizes that you're going to help him, he chips in with however he can. He seems less enamored with Scrappy than on previous loops because he has this hilarious flying cat instead. Just
I'm
before
super pumped.
supper,
This was such a good plan.
just before dinner service. So at this point, everybody, more or less everybody, is downstairs right now.
Yeah.
The dwarves came down late for dinner, but everybody else. And Vladislav comes downstairs, looking fairly pleased with himself. And he has his pipe in his hand, and Mordecai admonishes him for smoking. He tells you all that he's come to a satisfying conclusion, and he'll discuss it with you after the meal.
Certainly.
This is a good time to take our break, because my dog is, I don't know, murdering
Going
somebody
ham.
out there. I don't know what her problem is. So I'm going to go ahead and put Elizabeth on screen here, and step away. Go ahead and get your coffee, get your bagel, and let's reconvene at about 10 after 4.